Yeah, without further ado, Louis, if you could just give us like a short introduction about yourself and maybe a bit of your background, just to give the viewers a bit of an insight, inshallah.
Yeah, no problem. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah. So yeah, my name's Ismail Abu Ibrahim, and my background before becoming a Muslim was heavily involved in music, and yeah, I was a musician, a professional musician in London for a number of years. And 2011, I took Shahada, alhamdulillah. And also, I mean, I've spoken about this many times, but just to give a brief introduction, from a Jewish Zionist family on my mother's side. So that's another story that we might talk about another day. But something that I can speak about in detail, and something that I had a lot of experience in, was music, the life of a musician, and some parts of the music industry. So yeah, as I said, I was a musician in London, South London, and from a kind of secular liberal family. So grew up with secular liberal values, and in a house of music as well. My parents were into music, so I grew up listening to a lot of music. Picking up the guitar when I was 6 and starting to learn the drums when I was 8. And then, joining a music school in South London when I was, how old was I? 16 years old. And from there, going straight into performing with musicians in and around London, and also outside of the country as well. So yeah, that's a brief introduction about myself. Alhamdulillah, I've been Muslim, how long is it now? Since 2011. Is that 13 years, 14 years? And yeah, alhamdulillah, met Brother Abdul Karim many years back at Brother Hilal's halaqat for new Muslims in East London. When was that, Abdul Karim? How many years back was that? Like 12 years or 11 years ago? Oh, I can't hear you, bro.
Sorry, yeah. I think around, like you said, 2011, 2012, something like that.
Yeah. And me and Abdul Karim, we realized that we knew a number of people. We knew, we had a number of acquaintances that knew each other from our days in music, and the different events that we used to do around London. So yeah, that was interesting. Alhamdulillah, it's good to have a brother who's from a similar background, who understands some of the struggles that we as reverts go through, some of the tests. So yeah, barakallah feek. Thank you for having me today.
Wa feek barakallah. So if we just, just as is our tradition with the Revert Corner, I'm just going to read the English translation of the ayah in Surah Al-Luqman. It's ayah number 6, and it says, "Of mankind is he who purchases idle talk to mislead others from the path of Allah without knowledge, and takes it in ridicule, for there will be a humiliating punishment." And obviously this is just the interpretation of the meaning. It's not the actual Quran, but we know that this phrase idle talk is often seen in the Quran or a hadith, and especially when it relates to music. And a lot of the ulama, they say that this is something that is not restricted to music, but is also a reference to music. And if you look at, for example, the music industry, there indeed is much idle talk and these things. And we know as well that there are more explicit ahadith that talk about the usage of musical instruments and this and the likes. But to proceed into, the main conversation, and the main topic for today, or the main conversation, is leaving music for the Quran. And interesting, like you said, Louis, hopefully we'll see you come on the pod another time and talk a bit more about your background and things like this. But you did actually go right on an episode of Sheikh Fahd al-Kandari's program, right, which was about being guided by the Quran. So there is this element of your story where you left music for the Quran. I mean, I don't know if you just want to maybe start off the episode by maybe mentioning, for example, are there any particular ayat that you remember from back then that kind of jump started your journey?
I would say I think it came to me later, but something profound that, like, I literally remember a day where after I took Shahada, I was about to go. I was on the way to the masjid, actually. Maybe this is a month or two after becoming Muslim. I was on the way to the masjid to pray Dhuhr, I believe. And I was really kind of struggling with like the temptation of music, because I kind of cut off everything. Well, I mean, I was playing maybe a month after taking Shahada, but everything kind of came to an abrupt end. Walillahi alhamd. Allah made that easy for me at that particular time. But thereafter, I was getting drawn and tempted to go back and play. And so the point is, I was on the way to the masjid for Dhuhr, and I got a call from a friend of mine who was a musician, who was part of the crew that I was performing with at the time, or prior to taking Shahada. And he was calling me to come to their rehearsal, and he was like, "Look, I know you're Muslim. Just come, chill. Just come and just come through, say hello. You don't have to play." He's kind of calling me to that, and it was a big temptation. But I thought, what? Let me go and pray Salah. Let me go and get my Salah done, and then I'll see after the Salah. So I went and prayed Dhuhr. And subhanallah, like, the feeling of wanting to go anywhere near that place just left. Like, I didn't want anything to do with going to that rehearsal. I didn't want to be anywhere near it. And after, months or years, I can't remember how long, but the verse in Salah, inna salata tanha anil fahsha'i wal munkar. Verily the Salah, it prevents fahsha wal munkar, like evil, disobedience. So subhanallah, I found that before I knew that ayah, I found that to be the case. As soon as I prayed Salah, like, that feeling went. So that was a profound ayah, or part of an ayah for me, with my experience after praying Salah. And another surah that always jumped out at me was Surah Al-Zilzal, the earthquake. I think like, coming from the musical background as someone who's involved in percussion and drumming, it was the way that the ayah, the flow of the surah, and like I don't want to say the rhythm of the surah, if that's the best word, but it really kind of stuck out to me, like the unique flow of the surah, so that was but rather than, and of course the meaning as well is deep, the flow, the rhythm of it, and the actual content of it was like amazing and deep and scary as well. So that was something that really stuck out. It's very unique, because usually, in music, it's hard to get a perfect combination of like meaning and flow and rhythm. There's always something that will be forfeited, you know. But with the Quran, it's like it's the kalam Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, perfect. So yeah, that was something that really kind of stuck out.
I mean that's like, even if you notice with a lot of these, I'm thinking of like some of these, hit records from back in the day where like there's like absolutely garbage meaning, but it's just like especially to some of the choruses in certain, really, really popular songs. I remember that back in the day there was some song and it was called like Chihuahua or something. And it was like, some random DJ, I don't know, some European thing. And he was just repeating the word Chihuahua, but just because it had the rhythm. So it kind of ties into what you said of like the meaning of the song was absolute garbage, but because it sounded nice and it sounded good on the ears and stuff like this, but definitely, and I think what you're saying as well in terms of the ayah of the the salah as a protection, because there's so many things that people may want to be tempted by, so, especially for example in the West where you have like an array of things, whether it's like khamar or whether it's like women or this, that, whatever. But if you were to indulge some of these things, they would actually prevent you from the salah. So if you have in your mind like, no, I'm not going to do that because I've got asr up or I've got maghrib up at some point quite soon, then inshallah it will help be a protection for you, subhanallah.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
I mean, if we go into sorry, I was just going to say, if we go into a bit like you kind of mentioned on it, right? But it was kind of amazing how you mentioned that, when we started talking about people that we knew, for example, in the music world or whatever, we knew some kind of how would you say it, kind of mutual acquaintances, right? So I remember there's one particular person that I'm thinking of, and I think you have a story, so without mentioning his name, but I know as well that I don't know if he personally said it to me or he said it through people, but I do remember when I became Muslim, he was just like, I don't know if he said it personally or through someone, and he was basically like, I know plenty of Muslims and they're, doing their thing or this, that, whatever, or something like it's you don't have to, we're all waving the similar flag or, some kind of rhetoric of like, because, in many ways, right, to some extent, the individual that I'm talking about, his heart is like in many ways in the right place. So may Allah guide him,
I mean, yeah, I know who you're talking about. We're thinking about the same person.
Yeah. So I know that I remember you mentioned to me, for example, like I think it was like you when you just decided to quit and then you had an interaction with him. Maybe if you just detail us through how that went and you can tell us a bit of that story.
Yeah, well, what's funny is that like there was a Muslima sister who was like this guy that we're talking about. He was promoting a show or putting on a show in South London somewhere. But yeah, the point is there was an actual Muslim sister that was doing the same thing at the same time, who came with Islam, which is sad, so I can't really necessarily blame him because he's as you said, a non-Muslim, may Allah guide him. But when you've got other Muslim promoters putting on shows and raves and hip hop nights and all of this kind of stuff around the city, you can't really blame him, because he has many acquaintances and friends that are Muslim who are pushing this music thing hard, so but anyway, like we had some shows booked and I left music industry I left music completely, and also two members of the group that I was with also became Muslim, actually slightly before me. So kind of as a group, as a band, we kind of disbanded because we like, this is the haqq, you know, this is amazing. Let's follow this. This is like, you know, this is what's the word? Groundbreaking, life-changing experience. This is the ultimate truth. So we were very blessed in the fact that we were able to leave together and embark on the journey together at that particular time. But yeah, we had this show booked with this chap, and I had to break it to him. He was not very happy, and yeah, he said something similar like, you know, I've got loads of friends that are Muslim and they perform and they think this is ridiculous. Yeah, he was just he was upset, you know. So I said, I'm sorry, you know, there's nothing I can really do. Like we're not going to play. We're not going to do it. So yeah, he came with the same kind of speech of, you know, he didn't come with the we're all waving the same flag. It sounds like a bit more of a political cool, because I know he was into activism, you know. And some good stuff as well that he was calling to, like, you know, as you said, his heart was in the right place with regards to like ethics of colonialism and the issues that are going on in Palestine. But yeah, with this it was he didn't get it. He didn't get it at all. And he was probably even more annoyed. I was gonna say he's probably even more annoyed because maybe had a similar thing from you becoming Muslim and kind of going your separate
I
ways.
mean,
It's like, not another one.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was I mean, I wasn't like, you know, maybe as popular, you could say, within the music world as yourself, perhaps, right? But I mean, amongst people, you know, general people, or doing as well, or you know, so to speak. So in many ways that kind of helped me, you know. I think it made it easier. I think sometimes when people are having a lot of success, that can make it even more difficult to some extent to leave music, you know, because you know, there's more to leave, right? There's more to abandon, and the struggle can be greater. But in terms of that individual, you know, I definitely remember you mentioning to me this, and you know, even myself, there's people that I know who were also other rappers or artists who are Muslims who were associates with him, and they were heavily into music. And I actually remember the first couple of years that I was Muslim, I was more like focused on, and I mentioned this before on the podcast, like the 5 pillars. So I didn't really know much about the Sunnah. I didn't really know much about the evidences or anything like this. I just knew, like, you know, Shahada, pray, Hajj, Zakah, fast Ramadan. That's it. And then everything else, I was kind of just continuing much of my previous life. So I was still quite involved with, you know, some musicians and people like this. And I remember actually one of the other brothers, you know, may Allah guide him, who is known to this individual that we're speaking about. He kind of like said to me, like, look, people are gonna tell you that it's haram or whatever, but I'll sort you out. Don't worry. I'm gonna send you this fatwa, that basically will cure all your worries, kind of thing. You know, and it was funny because the same individual, they brought us to do like a show in, like, it was a very strange show. It was like Hammersmith Women's, like, Muslim Society. I don't know what exactly it was, right? But I performed.
Bro, you cut out for a second. Just repeat that, what you said.
It was like some kind of Hammersmith Muslim Women's Association or something like this. And we had been booked to go and do a show there. So we did a show, and I kind of told a bit about my story of Islam, performed, you know, something. And afterwards, it was funny because this older, like, Muslim auntie said, don't worry, you'll know us haram soon. You're just new and this, that, whatever. And then he was like, don't worry, I got you. So then he emailed me at the time. And I remember, I probably still got it in my email, this long fatwa by some like, you know, Azhari scholars or certain particular scholars. And it was like a very, you know, odd
wishy-washy
fatwa, wishy-washy kind of fatwa. But at the time, to be honest, if I'm being honest, like I said, I wasn't really that deep into seeking knowledge or anything like this. I was more like, get the basics down, the 5 basics. Oh, this is a fatwa. Okay, great, it's halal. Like, and then I just kind of continued on there. And it wasn't for me much later that I think it was after Ramadan where I had done itikaf for some time that kind of like really boosted my iman. And I was around a few brothers who actually kind of just advised me in a really nice way, where they were just like, look, you gotta like look into this music stuff. Like it's not a good idea and stuff. And I think just getting closer to Allah and then starting to seek knowledge and learn a bit more about the deen is what really elevated me to the point where I was like, okay, now I found it easy to quit, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, but you know, it's a big fitna for many people out there. And I mean, you even know yourself as well, right? People who get sucked back into it, you know? Subhanallah.
Yeah, no, I mean, similar to your situation with the kind of iman boost, with me, like when I kind of had that big iman boost after taking shahada, and like the whole world of Islam being opened up to me, and seeing the haqq for the first time, like when I was performing and when I went to perform after that time, it started to just feel very wrong from the get-go. And that was without knowing the adilla and you know, the hukum of music. And it was based upon jahl from my part. But because of that iman boost and kind of wanting to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and like I said, after salah and things like that, I kind of started to feel very disenfranchised and averse to music. Like I felt this is wrong, especially performing in clubs, like nightclubs and stuff like that. I remember, and because now I was sober as well and trying to stay sober, I remember performing sober, like for maybe the first time in I don't know how many years, and like looking across the stage at the crowd just dancing, and I was like, what am I doing here? Like this is strange. Like, and these people are kind of just like mindless, out of their minds, just intoxicated, and just, you know, they're not in the real world type of thing. And I'm just here just observing. I'm like, this is strange. We're performing to like fools. We're performing to, I'm not saying it to disrespect the people. I myself was in, you know, always going to raves and clubs and, you know, and the rest of it. But yeah, I was just looking at them like, I don't want it sounds rude, but like just like cattle, mindless, just you know. So that kind of had a profound effect, like the first couple of times performing, and then shortly after, that's when we all kind of quit. And it, actually, in fact, that night particularly that I'm thinking of, one of our friends who came said to the MC, who actually also took shahada before me, we were still kind of performing. Yeah. She said, "Oh, you're like a god. You're like a god tonight." And that messed him up, because that messed him up. And that's when he decided he needs to stop, you know, because he realized that level of glorification is not natural for a human being to receive, you know, especially after learning about Islam. And I guess he was introduced to some aspects of Tawheed at that time. So that particular night, that was like the game changer, you know.
Yeah, subhanallah.
Yeah.
I think that's one, you know, when you get deep into it, I mean, even for myself as well, right? Because I think you got two things. I think you got, like, obviously there's an element of the stuff that many people are involved in within the music industry, where we can see there's great satanic elements, right? And as you get deeper into the industry, especially people who got to like high echelons within the industry, right, you can see some really crazy stuff. And may Allah
100%.
guide him. I was watching a video the other day that was a podcast by one of the members of Boyzone or something, right? I think it's Boyzone, right? The pop group or whatever,
The Irish
right?
R&B
Yeah,
boy
yeah,
band.
yeah. So one of them, he actually explicitly states, right, and he's been guided to Christianity now. May Allah guide him to Islam, but he basically explicitly says that he has witnessed being in particular music studios where albums were specifically worshipped upon for the devil, for shaitan, or what have you, right? So and this is someone who's like a Christian, he's now, I think he's obviously wasn't at the time, but he's come forward. And so there are definitely things within that industry where you can clearly see like explicit calls. And I think it's even more now, right? They've got like these people who are big in the industry who just blatantly like dress up at the devil. I think there was one guy now who made like a trainer that had like 666 and human blood in it and all this kind of stuff, right? So you have that side, but then almost what's more dangerous is this thing that we're talking about, where people say like, but I'm not doing that satanic music. I'm doing kind of like good music, and in a way, what it
conscious.
Exactly, because I remember when I was first on my journey, like I was a bit on this side of the fence, right, in the beginning. And it was actually, one of the brothers who you've got there in the Riyadh, Napoleon, right? I went to a showing of his documentary in like South London somewhere when he came at one point, and I actually asked him. I said in this after kind of post documentary Q&A, I said, but the music I'm making, it's got a good meaning. And he said, no, it's not about the meaning, it's about the instruments.
Exactly.
And I think one interesting thing is like, this idea of magic that they often put in movies, where they have like kind of black magic and white magic, and they've got like the good magic and the bad magic, right? But we know in Islam it's all sihr, and it's all magic, and all magic is haram, and all magic is shirk, and it's kufr, right? So it's like the devil, the shaitan, playing with people to make people believe that there is a good music and a bad music, just like there is a good magic and a bad good music and bad music, good magic and bad magic, subhanallah. So it's definitely a test.
You can even you could draw a comparison likewise with like the danger of Ahl al-Bid'ah as opposed to non-Muslims. Some of the ulama, they mention about like with regards to Aqidah and things like that. With regards to non-Muslims, that they're not Muslims, so you're not going to be affected by their kalam. You're going to know it's batil. But with Ahl Bid'ah and some of their shubahat, and obviously to different extents and different levels, that could misguide you more than the shubahat of the Yahud or the Christians, or So it's that kind of, I don't want to call it grey area, because it's an amr which is wadih if you study the mas'ala, and and especially if you come from the background we come from, and you see the effect that it has on people, like psychologically, scientifically. No doubt that there's a great harm in it. So it is a very, especially these days, it's become like when I took shahada, alhamdulillah, like the da'wah was a lot clearer in many senses. I don't know if that's just because I took Shahada in an area where I was in a kind of a Salafi masjid, and I had, instantly kind of learning about mashayikh of Sunnah. But I've lost my train of thought. What was I saying? Oh yeah,
I mean,
yeah. But it seems like these days, like, sorry to cut you, like these days on YouTube, like there's so many shubahat that have come into the mainstream. So it's like back in the days where you'd sit down and it would be normal to listen to like an hour lecture about tafsir or whatever it may be. Now that those days seem kind of gone, or like the common thing is kind of
30-second reels, really, isn't it? We've lost you, bro. You're frozen. No problem. While our brother is frozen for a second there, I'll take this time to respond to our brother Joe Baz. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Joe, I hope you're doing well. Joe says, has anyone read the Islamic ruling on music and singing by Abu Bilal Mustafa Al-Kennedy? Barakallah feek, Joe. Ismail, are you back? I can hear you. Sorry, I can't hear you. Wa alaikum salam. You got frozen for a second. No worries. Can you hear me, bro? Okay, he may not be able to hear me. But anyway, let me continue. So, Joe, I haven't heard of this treatise that you sent, but just after you sent it, I was looking it up, and Allahumma barik, it looks. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Sorry, I don't know what happened there.
No worries. I was just taking the time to respond. There was this brother Joe, who sometimes tune in. He's mentioned this treatise called "The Islamic Ruling on Music and Singing" by Abu Bilal Mustafa Al-Kennedy, and I was just looking it up. It seems very interesting, and very deep. It seems that the brother Abu Bilal studied at Qura in Mecca and has written this quite detailed 6-chapter in-depth look at music and singing, going into what the Salaf say, the 4 Imams, Imam Abu Hanifa, Malik, Shafi'i, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, what does Bukhari, Ibn Majah, all of them. So it seems like a very beneficial book that Joe has suggested. I've never heard of it before, though. I don't know anything other than what I've just read online about the author, that he studied in Qura in Mecca. But it seems like he's arranged a very solid book showing the prohibition of music and singing. And so that would be very interesting for people to maybe have a look at. But I've never heard of it before, to be honest. Is it something that you ever came across before?
I think this was what Mutar Napoleon, formerly Napoleon, put on his website many years back, and I read this. If it's the same person, because I think it's the same one. It's very, very good, very detailed. And he goes through the different adilla, and even the ayah that you mentioned at the very beginning about of the people, those who purchase idle speech, and he mentioned that is not necessary. I mean, it's a dalil, but he said that that's not the conclusive dalil. And I remember him mentioning that in this particular book. And the conclusive dalil is the hadith of those who will make permissible that which was impermissible from drinking of khamr and the wearing of silk and the playing of musical instruments. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, the meaning of the hadith. So I believe this is the same book, and it was one of the best books I've read, or treatises I've read on the issue in English. I believe it's the same book. So yeah,
mashallah.
Yeah.
I was just reading a little bit of this this introduction. It seems he wrote this as well in 1986 as well. So
Oh, mashallah.
he was. It seems like a very interesting person, Al Mubarak, who was born in Italy.
Okay.
I don't know if he's still alive. May Allah have mercy on him, whether he's alive or he has passed away.
I
But
mean,
yeah, so definitely, especially if it's one of the books that you're saying that Napoleon has reference to, I'm sure that it is upon the Sunnah, and Jazakallah khair to Joe Baz and to our brother Napoleon. And Joe, if you have read it as well, maybe you can tell us, if it benefited you and any benefit you got out of it. We also have our brother Five Adam. Salam alaikum, says Ibn Abbas and all companions. I guess he's saying that music is haram. And yeah, like you said, there's the famous hadith that talks about I think he references it here. I'm just having a quick look through the treatise by the brother Abu Bilal, and he mentions all the ayat and the hadith as well. The hadith of Bukhari, where the Prophet ﷺ said there will be a time where people from my ummah make lawful fornication, the wearing of silk, wine drinking, and the use of musical instruments. Some people will stay at the side of the mountain, and when their shepherd comes in the evening to ask them for his needs, they will say, return to us tomorrow. Then Allah will destroy them during the night by causing the mountain to fall upon them, while he changes others into apes and swine. They will remain in such a state until the day of resurrection. So this is quite clear cut.
Yeah. Another thing with that, I mentioned it on a previous podcast a number of years ago. That hadith, the wording or the verb they will make permissible is yastahlun or yastahilun. They will seek to make permissible, yani like sorry, I'm losing my words. The ya and the sin and the ta is for talab, like istighfar, istighatha or istishfa, so that particular verb is they will seek to make permissible, and this is what we see people doing, like that exact action, seeking to find a way to make it permissible. And I had a friend that I believe as well, who took Shahada and he went back into the music industry, and he said to me, I'm just trying to find a way to make this music thing halal. I'm seeking to make a way to make this music thing halal. So when I started learning like sarf and learning Arabic, and then reading the wording of that hadith, I was like, Subhanallah, Sadaqa Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because he embodied what was said in the hadith. It was a Muslim seeking to make it permissible for himself when he knew deep down it wasn't. He knew deep down it wasn't, because he said that to me as well. I just know it isn't. And then eventually shaitan got the better of him, and may Allah protect us from our nafs and from the worst of shaitan and the bad company that was around him. He fell back into it and became actually quite successful after having left it and taking shahada, becoming successful and very respected and successful in his field, and then later falling into drug abuse and all kinds of madness that I unfortunately had to hear about, which is sad, but it all started from, I'm just seeking to make this music thing halal for me. Then from there you go into you're recording, you're producing tracks, then you're performing, and then obviously you're a Muslim, so shaitan's going to aid that shar, that evil, and then from there getting signed, and then from there being in just very bad environments, and being around a lot more temptation when you start to get more money and fame, and then drugs, and addiction, and then rock bottom. So yeah, man,
I think this is the thing that people sometimes forget, is that the way that shaitan works is that if shaitan cannot get you with shirk and you've now embraced Islam, he'll try to
Mm.
come and get you with something else, you know. And if
Yeah.
he cannot get you with the major sins, then he'll try and come and get you with something else, or he'll try and have get you with a doubt in
Yeah.
certain aspects of the religion or things like this, or then, you know, some other aspects of your desires. And once you know, perhaps shaitan finds that niche in which to like get you, it's just like one thing leads to the other. And we see this, like, you know, so much in reality, whereby, for
Mm.
example, maybe it's a sister who was really strong on her deen, and then slowly she used to wear niqab, and then suddenly she doesn't wear the niqab, and she says, you know, it's permissible not to. I'm taking the opinion where it's permissible not to wear the niqab, and you know, it's mubah and
Mm.
whatever. And then slowly the hijab becomes tighter, and then slowly it becomes a turban, and then slowly it turns away from not being hijab. And likewise, the same thing with, you know, brothers, maybe perhaps, you know, uh, could be other fitting, you know, in terms of like maybe perhaps
Yeah.
shortening his beard and slowly going, you know, and next thing, you know, oh, I'm going to take this.
Mm.
Like they've taken an opinion whereby they don't believe that certain thing is permissible, but then they said, they
Yeah.
almost, like you said, they find an opinion to kind of
Yeah.
justify. And are they really
That's
going
right. Yeah.
with you know, the evidence, or are they going for their
Mm.
desire? And likewise, the same thing with
Yeah.
music. Maybe it becomes a temptation,
Mm.
because at the end of the day,
Yeah.
as reverts, we know that there's certain things in life that Allah has prohibited, that there's like a certain um pleasure to, or beauty to, or there's an aspect whereby it's not, you know, and this is something that Allah has done to test us. You know,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not that um everything that has been prohibited is
Mm.
like absolutely disgusting and filthy, right? Otherwise it wouldn't
Mm.
be a temptation, it wouldn't be a test,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know. So
Yeah.
I think people sometimes misjudge that. And at the end of the day, alhamdulillah, you know, the greater the test, right, the greater the reward, inshallah. So, you know,
Yeah.
um
Yeah. No, like you're saying, bro. I often compare like leaving music to like a heroin addict in recession, or a heroin addict that has left that is struggling, that has left heroin, but always has that. They say that alhamdulillah, I've never I've never
yeah,
participated in that, but
alhamdulillah.
they say that it always lingers afterwards. There's always a lingering of like
Mhm.
that yearning for that high. And I always feel like someone who is a musician, well, Allahu alam, I'm speaking for myself, but there's aspects of
Yeah,
that, of not yearning, but like just the fitna of music, like especially when you're when you go so deep into music and you know it so well, you know the production, you know different type of snare sounds, you know how, you know the mixing desk, if it's an analog or a digital, and the sound that comes. So when you go into a coffee shop, like any normal person will go into a coffee shop and maybe they hear background music and they'll think nothing of
yeah,
it. But when I go in, I like hear the whole production, and it's like sometimes it's awful. You know, alhamdulillah, that's one of the ni'mah of
yeah,
living in Saudi. Um,
yeah.
you can, for the most part, you can avoid that. But like when
I
I
mean,
go
I
back to
was I
London and
was
stuff,
um I was shocked now recently when I was in the UK, and even one time when I visited Malaysia.
mm,
um I went into like H&M or one of these, you know, clothing shops. And bro, they
yeah,
had like full on DJ and stuff, and like mad, like
well,
speakers that used to be like in a kind of rave or whatever. And I guess the idea is to
mm,
keep the people, you know, in the shop by, I don't know, making them rave out in the shop. But it was
yeah, yeah,
crazy because like that was the
yeah,
kind of sound that maybe back in the day we would hear like in a club, you know. And it's like, and this was even in Subhanallah, Malaysia, in like the middle of the day, like
mm.
it was unbearable, to be honest. Like I had to leave the store,
Uh,
like in
oh,
Malaysia,
that was in
subhanallah.
Malaysia, you said.
In Malaysia, but I've experienced a
Mm,
similar thing in the UK, man. I've experienced a similar thing
yeah,
in
yeah,
the UK, but in Malaysia it was
mm,
crazy because I guess I wasn't
yeah,
expecting it. But
mm. SubhanAllah, Allah
Yeah, man.
musta'an. Yeah.
But yeah, definitely. I wanted to mention a funny experience that I had as well. Like you mentioned, for example, you're one of quitting music. There was a brother that I actually once met in Mecca through a mutual friend, and it was really funny because I didn't know, but at the time I was meant to be performing a show like in I think it was Leeds or somewhere, and
Okay.
the basically the you know the night fell apart. Like all these people, like the show fell apart and this, that, whatever, and it all didn't go ahead as planned and all this kind of stuff, right? And later, subhanallah, I actually met this brother who became a good friend of mine, who actually turns out he was putting on this show, and on the day of the show, it was actually meant to be a show that was like, you know, one of these kind of Palestine fundraisers. And he had seen on the day of the show that all these like hijabis, Muslim women, Muslim men and stuff, they were all going to go attend this like big music show, and it's in like a bar or whatever. There's going to be alcohol, all this stuff. And he had just started to like practice a bit his deen at the time. And he was, you know, doing it for Palestine, but he just started to practice. And then so he had basically said, you know what? I'm quitting this. I'm not doing this. And he completely quit. And he was the main organizer of the show. He quit everything and he would just went with a couple of friends, and he was just eating like a curry or something in Leeds that night. And I met him so many years later, and we were like talking. And then we mentioned this thing, and we kind of reminiscing about certain things. And he was like, look, bro, let me tell you, that was my show, and I quit, and I'm the one who destroyed it all and made it all messed up.
SubhanAllah. That's a small world. Allahu Akbar. It's the qadr.
Yeah, so
Allah brought you both
it's
together
similar
in the
to
best
how
of places. SubhanAllah,
exactly,
that's amazing.
Yeah, similar to how we kind of talked as well, and we realized like, oh, actually, we knew mutually people, and like you said, I think, or we mentioned at the beginning that, you know, sometimes shaitan as well, especially when you, like you said, you have knowledge of music, you know about it, you knew people who were big in the industry and stuff. Sometimes you might get like these times where you see certain people that you knew, and they're like, they've got all this success in the dunya and this, that, whatever. How would you, as someone, deal with that? Because I have a situation now where like there was a guy I knew, and I think something happened. Like he did something in the music industry for I think he's nominated for an Oscar or something like this, right? You know, my mum was showing to me, oh, look at so and so, whatever. So how do you deal with those kind of situations where you're like looking back and you're kind of like, maybe shaitan comes to you and says, oh man, you could have been this or you could have been that?
Yeah. I mean, it all comes down to, at the end of the day, ilm, knowledge, and acting upon that knowledge, and which increases your connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I remember the brother, friend of yours, Abdurrahman, the brother who's living out there in Mecca, he mentioned that on one podcast about how he was able to leave music, and he was right. You know, that was a perfect answer. So I'm just paraphrasing what he said, which is it's knowledge and applying that knowledge. And one of the benefits we have as reverts as well is that we've tasted the bitterness of jahiliyyah and of kufr, you know, and we've tasted how miserable we could be in those days without any nur in our hearts. We didn't know the sensation or the feeling of iman. And of course, the problem is like our iman goes up and down, and especially when we're new Muslims, we're quite fragile. We're very fragile, and we've got a lot of tarbiyah and tasfiyah to do. We've got a lot of like educating ourselves and purifying the ills that we carried over from jahiliyyah in our souls. So it's easy to fall into those dark places as a revert, especially in the beginning. But yeah, I mean, like as I said, for me, the salah and finding that as a sanctuary, like a retreat, that helped me, you know, from the waswas of the shaitan. And the shaitan, he hates it the most when you are making sujood to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if
Yeah.
ever, I mean, one way to, if those feelings come to you, one way of like a quick, a quick and easy way to get rid of the waswas of the shaitan is to go and make wudu and pray to rakat, to be in sujood and to beg Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help you and guide you through it. And another thing that helped me, which is kind of what this podcast was about, which is trying to get on the path to learning the Quran, learning tajweed, learning the alphabet, and gradually building up to replacing the music, which enters the heart. It's very powerful, and it really does do something profoundly. It really profoundly affects the heart. And replacing that with the Quran,
Yeah. I mean, definitely. You can see.
Sorry,
yeah, go ahead.
I think I went on a tangent a bit, but with regards to the people that get that kind of that look at people and kind of maybe they feel a level of like I'm missing out type thing. Because I remember I was with a brother in Mecca who, may Allah guide him, he fell off and went into music and back into rapping. I was in Mecca of all places, and he must have listened to or a video came up of an old rapper that we used to know, and he was saying just like, the worst thing, I feel I can do it better than him. He knew it was wrong, but it's like he had that feeling I can do it better than him. But it's like, do you want to replace what Allah gave you of iman and the haqq with this shallow kind of material facade of happiness and enjoyment in front of a crowd and a load of yes men and a load of people that are just completely devoid of the hidayah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in those circumstances? Do you want to trade this for that? Do you really need to think about like what you could be trading it for and the end game, and again, having knowledge and acting upon that, coming close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through that, it helps you to understand that better. But as well, coming from Jahili, you should know how you used to feel and the misery and the humiliating situations you put yourself in before as well, and try and remember those things and remember those days where Allah put nur in your heart and Allah showed you His signs and showed you that this is the haqq, and when you put it into context and you put it into perspective, that makes it easier to be like, what, this is shaitan playing with me right now. And then you need to busy yourself with khair, even if it's small and consistent, find something that you can do within your capacity and not overburden yourself and work on that. But I'll tell you, like sujood, like being in sujood and begging Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that has helped me through some of my like darkest times. 100%, with regards to the fitna of music. And
and I mean, to mention and maybe to tie in, because I'm wary of the time as well, right? But so I'll kind of move this into as viewer contribution section. But we got the brother Jamil, and who as well, right? Who's
mashallah,
on the Instagram. He's mentioned that Habibi. What do you think about the manner in which people leave the sin from our culture, which can sometimes be inorganic and leads to relapses? And, I clarified what he meant there in terms of, going completely cold turkey and the support structure they have. It doesn't make you conducive. I think it's a good point, but I think it goes back. And I think an incredible example of this is the brother who you mentioned, Abdurrahman, who was in Mecca but now is in the UAE, who has his Jada Institute, and hopefully as well we're going to be doing an episode with him next week in terms of Arabic and learning the Quran to follow on from this episode, which could be good, inshallah. And maybe you'll join as well, Ismail. We'll see how it goes. But in response to this, what I would say is if you look at his kind of example, right? I believe, and from what I remember of his story, he told me once that he went to a sheikh, and the sheikh, the advice that he gave him was not like, stop this, cut this out right away, and be very judgmental, because that sometimes can make people go the opposite way. That like even like how I was,
Yeah.
because people were telling me, oh, it's haram, this, that, whatever. As soon as a Muslim was kind to me and said, no, here's the fatwa, it's halal, I was like, great, alhamdulillah, and I took it.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
in his situation, the sheikh said, like, look, you need to study and you need to learn the Quran. And once you do that, and that path you go down, he was
Yeah.
like, you won't even want to listen to music, or you won't even want to do that or whatever, right? Because I think at the time
Yeah.
he was so
Yeah.
involved in music, you know, he was there's this rapper that I'm sure you probably heard of as well, who is very famous, who he basically taught him how to rap, and he's still big in the music world, and I think he's still friends with him and
Yeah.
stuff like this to this day. He gives him da'wah and whatnot, but
Yeah.
music was very, you know, entrenched in his life, and he basically just embarked on a journey of seeking knowledge. And I think that
Yeah.
seeking knowledge and learning Arabic is what really made him fall in love with the Quran. And if you fall in love with the Quran, that's something that when you come to it, you'll fall out of love with music, because
Yeah.
you know, if you truly start to like get a grasp on knowledge of Islam and the Quran, you've literally got Allah's words like for you to listen to, and for you to be receiving and listening to Allah's words, which are beautiful, and they have a melody to when recited beautifully, etc.
Yeah.
Or you could be listening to some kind of, you know, misguided Muslim, sinful Muslim, or worse, a non-Muslim calling to, you know, worshipping filthy things or lewdness and whatever. And,
Yeah.
you know, when you look at it like that, like I can listen to Allah, or I can listen to, like, you know, so and so rapper telling me what he believes he's found so profound in the world. Like, it's kind of a no-brainer, you know? It's kind of a
Yeah.
no-brainer.
Yeah.
But definitely I think what's important, especially for reverts, is for people within the Muslim community to not like be so harsh and judgmental, and to be more
100%.
kind of like soft in terms of the advice, and gentle, and let people take things step by step and kind of nudge them in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
direction. And you'll know people, if
Yeah.
you know a person and you know how they are, you'll know that this
Yeah.
person, all right, I need to give him a bit more of a solid, firm kind of like, akhi, fear Allah, you know? But that comes with I think knowing the people. Allahu alam.
Knowing the person. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Yeah. To touch on what Jamil said, Jazakallah khair. Yeah, there's definitely an issue, bro, and that's like, you know, I spoke about my revert story like on my little YouTube channel and here and there and different podcasts and whatnot. But something I would like to talk about more is what I went through after taking Shahada. And yeah, definitely, like I relate to what you're saying about you know, alhamdulillah, like at the beginning it was like a big iman boost. I was like enlightenment moment, without sounding too cliche, but it literally was like that. Like there's no other way I can really explain it. And then, but because of the lack of knowledge, like then you get tempted, or you get the waswas after that moment, and that's when you get really tested. And then certain people, if you're around certain people that are harsh and are not knowledgeable, that can be absolutely devastating, and you can get pushed into this unnatural way of practicing the deen that is kind of not on your terms. I don't want to say on our terms. We follow the Quran and Sunnah, but I mean, everyone has to take steps from the backgrounds that they're from. And yeah, I definitely experienced this thing, which was tumultuous, like emotional turmoil for because I felt kind of what's the word, compelled before I was ready to do certain things, you know, or to be in certain environments of, you know, certain environments of ilm or whatever. I wasn't ready for it at that particular time, and it can become very unnatural. So that is definitely something that as you said, Abdul Karim, like having rahmah. And every time that I was shown rahmah by someone with ilm, subhanallah, it's like you just accept that. If you know, we ask Allah for sincerity, But whenever
Ameen.
someone came with rahmah, kindness, and ilm, it was like, yeah, this really helps to be around people that are treating you kindly and they're patient with you, but they also have ilm and they can direct you in the right direction, you know. So
Yeah,
Allahu a'lam.
100%, 100%.
Yeah.
I think that's a great point to kind of wrap it up. And I think, you know, moving forward, inshallah ta'ala, you know, we're definitely going to try and get you on for another episode in terms of talking about your background and you know, having Zionist family members and the struggle of dealing with that. I think that in itself deserves a whole episode. And also we have done as well, which would be great to do another. We did kind of part 1 and part 2 of Shahada done. What's next? So sounds like you'd be able to, you know, perhaps do a part 3 on that topic with us as well. I mean, there's always so many things to unpack. And moving forward, inshallah, we will be talking to, like I mentioned, our brother Abdurrahman from Ijada Institute next week, inshallah. That episode might be released next week or sometime in Ramadan. And you know, he is someone as well who left music for the Quran, and he's going to hopefully talk to us about learning Arabic and learning Quran and his journey in that regard, which I think is very inspirational. So, you know, thank you so much, Ismail, Abu Ibrahim, Louis. I mean, people know me here as Ed as well. So you know me as Abdul Kareem. It's one of those things, isn't it? We've got our revert name and our name before Islam. And, you know, we're you know, finding ourselves to some extent. But Jazakallah khair for coming. And, you know, if you have any final words for the viewers, really appreciated having you on today. Jazakallah khair.
Barakallahu feek, akhi. No, I appreciate the invite. And I can't think of anything off the top of my head. We discussed quite a lot surrounding music. There's a lot more that I would like to talk about. With regards to the issue of music, but obviously, you know, the time is tight. Just one more thing. Another a book that talks about the like psychological or scientific harms of music is a book called The Music Made Me Do It, which is quite interesting. Now, the author, I don't know. I'm not promoting him with regards to his Islamic credentials, but the information he brings from secular studies about the effect of music on psychologically is very interesting. So that's another book. And he does mention the 4 schools of. He does mention the hukum and the 4 schools of thought and the agreement between them. And there's some dubious sources in there, but the hukum is there. And the academic research is very interesting if you want to look at like the harms and the dangers of music from a psychological view. That's just one thing that I wanted to mention.
Jazakallah, no, much appreciated. And I think it's definitely one of those issues, like you know, was mentioned, that you really need to embark upon that path as well and learn. And you know, obviously in terms of the religion, that is one of the things that is so beautiful about Islam, that we're not a people of blind faith. We are a people of evidence, and you know, following the evidences. And Allah has preserved the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ for us to research. So alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair, bro, once again, and inshallah we hope to see you back for another episode. And to all the viewers, 5 Adam, Jazakallah khair, he said great show, we appreciate it. Joe Baz, for Jamil, Hamada Suleiman, for all tuning in, Jazakallah khair, and hopefully we'll see you another time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.